Welcome to the 5th episode of No Two Forks Given. In this episode, I'll be putting on the final pieces to get the Vyrus fully ready for the racetrack. Here, I'm removing the handlebars so that I can insert the carbon fiber fairings later on. Additionally, I'm installing and securing all the wiring to integrate a digital dash that also acts as my data logger. This data will be invaluable as I can then compare my track performance between the Vyrus and my other fork motorcycles. This particular data log comes with a considerable length of cable for the GPS receiver. The extra lengths are just simply looped together and zip tied. It was recommended that the GPS receiver be mounted on the tail, away from all the electronic noise of fuel injectors and even the dash itself. With the tail cone in place, I can secure the GPS cable along the seat and towards the tail. The fused red and black wires provide power directly to the data logger from the battery. This is so the logger can shut down properly and not abruptly when the bike itself is switched off. One of the most unique and largest individual piece of the Vyrus is the carbon fiber monocoque. Besides being a beautiful and extremely lightweight piece of kit, the monocoque serves multiple purposes, from supporting the dash to providing support for the rider at full lean. I found this to be one of the most trickiest pieces to secure onto the chassis, and it took a little bit of trial and error to figure out the rear section goes on first, then the front. Once the monocoque is over the gas tank and steering column, it's simply secured with 3 bolts on each side. Here, I assembled the on-off toggle switch. As this is a race bike, there are no keys. These oval grommets are a nice touch to prevent wear and tear from cables and wires. So onto the right side are the throttle cables. I have the clutch cables going through the top middle opening. And now to install the handlebars. You can see why the monocoque has to be installed first. This is a really tight area that you can't fit a torque wrench in. Once again, a short stubby hex wrench will do. At this viewing angle, you can see one of the unique aesthetic benefits of not having forks. No gaping holes for the forks to pivot about the steering head. As mentioned in the last episode, I checked the throttle snap a lot during assembly. Really want to make sure the throttle cables are not binding. Perhaps one of the worst fears of every motorcycle rider is the throttle stuck wide open, especially on a racetrack and the first hard braking corner is coming up. The side panels of the monocoque allows access to the radiator cap and also view to connect the front brake lines. Once I'm happy with all the cables and control positions, it's time to torque down all the bolts. The Vyrus dash bracket supports the original Honda CBR 600 dash. To mount the data logger, I need to create an adapter bracket. As with making any custom parts, the responsibility is 100% on me to make sure everything fits, from the immediate issues such as the bolt holes lining up, to more downstream things like do the handlebars hit the dash. It's a very satisfying feeling when all the measurements are correct. Next is to see how well the logger assembly fits into the base bracket. Seems to fit nicely. The next test is on the bike. First, the nose cone is installed with 2 bolts on either side. And then the base bracket is secured onto the monocoque. And then the data logger itself. And now to check to see if the controls will hit the dash. Seems to have good clearance. The large multi-pin cable you've been seeing is for the logger. Now to snap it in place. Here I'm fishing the USB cable out. This cable is for downloading any data off the logger. Conveniently, the base bracket that holds the upper fairing is a good place to zip tie this USB cable. The front fender is secured with 3 bolts. Here you can really see the white plastic washers that Vyrus provides to make sure you don't mar the carbon fiber piece. These titanium bolts are for the brake calipers. Back when I was racing, it was mandated that the calipers are safety wired. Here I'm replacing one of the rear caliper bolt. The golden brown grease is anti-seize to minimize the titanium galling. I'm using the rear wheel speed sensor mount for the safety wire. My donor CBR 600 engine is a non-ABS model, so no wheel speed sensor. And now to replace the front caliper bolts with titanium ones as well. As you can see, the calipers are mounted at the bottom, so safety in wiring these makes extra sense. Keen viewers may have noticed the left calipers haven't been torqued down. I assure you these are torqued, I just forgot to film it. I'm approaching the end of the build, so now's the time to triple check the torque on every nut and bolt. Nobody wants to be that guy whose bike came apart at speed. With all the bolts torqued, it is time to mark them. Every session off the track, I try to make it a habit to spend a few minutes inspecting for any loose bolts. Most racers and folks with dedicated track bikes will be familiar with the Vyrus seat. It's simply a foam pad that's double-side taped on. Time to close the monocoque side panels. The attention to detail is stunning as they made sure the carbon fiber weave lines up between the monocoque and the panel covers. If you look closely on the left screen, there are no wires and cables going into the monocoque from the left handlebar. Normally your turn signal, horn, light switches and such are mounted there, but since this is a track bike, there's nothing. The upper fairings are split into two pieces. The area in front of the dash is also where you would install the street light kit. I've seen some light kits stick out of the windscreen. I've also seen some that are completely inside the windscreen, resulting in a more streamlined look. These are aftermarket carbon fiber brake lever guards. Also, I happened to install these for my racing days. And now for the final piece, the lower carbon fiber belly pan. As this is a high impact area, off screen I did install some paint protection film on these pieces to minimize the damage from road debris. Some of the very early prototype 986s do not use the lower side panels at all. Instead, they have what seems to be a third additional radiator inside the motor. Perhaps it's to further cool the engine oil itself. And now just 4 bolts to secure the lower onto the bike. In the next episode, I'll be describing just what it's like to pilot one of these things. Here's the sneak peek. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.